Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I am not Don Pizzette, but he is right here in the studio with me. Don, how's it going today?
It is going great. Another great podcast lined up today, so I'm looking forward to talking about some of the different technologies that are out there and a lot of big news.
They're all great podcasts until we get started.
Yeah, can't really judge them until they're over. And
yeah,
then we're like, oh, all right, it wasn't so great.
And the reason why, Daniel, how you doing?
Hey, I'm going to stab you.
See, it's already off
That's
the rails.
going to be a great podcast.
It's important to set
Peter,
attainable goals.
Peter screams like a weird person.
I do. Yeah, turn your speakers down because I will be screaming like a lady. And we are joined also by Mohit Tiwari, who is the CEO and co-founder of Symmetry Systems. How you doing?
Hey, Brad, doing great. How are you?
Oh, there he is. Okay, I got scared for a second. I'm doing good. Good to have you on. And you're in Austin, Texas, is that right?
I was in Austin, Texas
Oh.
until a couple months ago, and I just moved to San Francisco.
Oh, beautiful. All right.
That's like the opposite of
I
all
was
the
supposed to
stories
say,
we keep hearing about
yeah.
people leaving California. You've
Going to Austin.
You said the rent is just not high enough here in Austin.
No. I need a two-man tent for $1,200 a month.
No, it's good. I feel like it made a lot of sense for our family. My wife was starting a job at UCSF, so the decision was not in my hands.
So he wants to be in Austin is what I just
Yeah.
heard, basically. when it's raining and foggy in
I
San
can
Francisco.
feel the resentment building up inside of him.
You said something about the rent, and it's
that triggered him. He's hard triggered.
Yeah, you just basically got to find somewhere to squat, I think, and you'll be all set. But we'll learn in this first segment a little bit about that relationship with University of Texas and Austin as we get to know Mohit in our first segment, Rapid Fire Questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, so what we're going to do is run through a couple of rapid-fire questions. You'll be given 1 minute to answer the question. If you run over, Peter will buzz you. There we go. And then we'll just move on to the next question. So it's a great chance to learn a little bit about you. We'll rotate through each person. Peter, you're going to kick it off.
I still haven't buzzed anybody yet because it just feels so rude to do. But, but just know that threat is there. So first and foremost, just what can you tell us about Symmetry Systems and DataGuard, I guess, is your main product there. So what can you tell us about the two?
Right. So Symmetry Systems is the leading provider, and we introduced the concept of data firewalls. And the idea is across all your data stores, across your clouds, you need a way to keep an eye on, measure your data risk, and then improve it. So this drives compliance and both security.
And this isn't my rapid fire question. I'm going to cheat a little bit here.
Go
but
for it.
You mentioned like data across your environment. Are you talking about like documents or databases? What do you mean by that?
Right. So data stores. So you have, object stores like S3, which is in the news for many reasons all the time. There are SQL data stores like MySQL, Oracle, and stuff. And there are NoSQL data stores. So each of these have very different security controls around them. And for a security team or a DevOps team, it's just really hard to answer the question, where is my most risky data? How is it protected? Who is accessing it? Right? How do I drive down data risk? So we just want to give like a very DevOps-centric, tool that scales across your data stores, across your cloud environments. So even if you have hundreds of millions of objects in S3, terabytes of data in SQL, NoSQL data stores, you should be able to understand where the data risk is and then drive down that data risk.
Well, let's get back to the origin of the company. I think Peter dropped a hint on this. We're down here in Gainesville, Florida, right next to the University of Florida, and we get to see a lot of companies, startups kind of come out of the university system. Is that what happened with you guys?
Yeah. Absolutely. So University of Florida is great. They have a really good cybersecurity operation going on. So for us, the story was similar. We started doing this research in 2011. Around 2013, 14, we worked with hospitals, whose motto was healthcare happens outside the hospital, very relevant now, then with DARPA, DOD, NSA, and then with cloud providers. So at some point, they were all like, hey, we would like to go to production with this. And we were like, okay, we're just students and faculty. So then last year, we spun out formally as a company. and got cybersecurity focused investors like ForgePoint. And since then, we've been growing the company, the research as a company.
Now, it's my understanding that you developed this for the big three, right? The healthcare, finance, and government. But from what you're saying, it sounds like this would be applicable to other industries as well. Is that the case, or is it just for those certain specific industries?
No, you're 100% right. So, there's this concept of who are the early adopters and kind of of technology, and then it kind of drains out to the rest of the organizations or verticals. We picked these three because they are big compliance drivers for why they should stay on top of data risk, right? They are sitting on some of the most valuable data, whether it's healthcare or finance or for DoD. Their attackers are not script kiddies or even small scale operations, there's nation states and such. So they need the highest quality security, but the tooling is built to be deployable on AWS, on GCP. So our motto is a data guard for every data store. Like we should have Symmetry data guard like products. We call the category data store and object security, and data guard is just one product in this category. So you need this DSOS, data store and object security category solutions.
So piggybacking off of what Don said a little bit about multiple systems, this sounds like it's an ideal setup for kind of like a hybrid cloud, which is something we've been talking about a lot recently. If people don't necessarily just put all your stuff in one basket when we have outages and things. So is this a good setup for someone that's got, you mentioned GCP and AWS and Azure?
Right, exactly. So we find that hybrid cloud, there's a lot of discussion whether it makes sense or not, because you should just put all your eggs into one cloud and just focus on getting it right. But what we find is that different clouds have different strengths. So a lot of people use Google's TPU and for ML training, right? But then they also use Amazon S3 and EC2 for running their regular microservices. So as a security team, you're in charge of product people innovating using whichever tool is best for the job, but they have to protect across the different clouds. And for legacy reasons, they're almost always sitting on-prem data stores as well. So yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to ask you, you built this system in a pre-COVID world, and then we roll it out, and now everything changes. How has it affected your product or kind of the way you approach things for your customers?
So our customers got affected very massively, and I think that has bled down into everything that we have done. So for our customers, it has accelerated a push into moving, at the very least, even in the worst case, they're lifting and shifting on-prem workloads into the cloud, right? And all the cloud providers have doubled down on getting all the compliance papers signed off and everything. So our customers are moving to the cloud. They are having to figure out how to set up controls around their most valuable asset, their data. And we have had to essentially accelerate how much scale of the data that we need to be able to handle, right? And the kinds of compliance we are helping customers even with FedRAMP. So this is like the most stringent, government-related compliance standard that typically you didn't need to do for your cloud workloads because you were deploying this in people with guns kind of data centers. But now they have to do it on the cloud and get those things compliant with FedRAMP, let alone SOC 2 and HIPAA and these simpler compliance standards. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, I want to get to our next segment here, which is our worst IT nightmares, and find out a little bit about what keeps you up at night.
Worst IT nightmares.
I love that intro. So, so you look at security kind of a different way than other people, I think. So what is it that keeps you up at night? What is your worst IT nightmare?
So I can answer this with what has happened to someone on our team. So we have a pretty large team of people in the core engine room, developers and such, but also a close set of advisors. So we get to hear a lot of IT nightmares. And the worst one that I heard recently was, there was a master database, it fell down, this backup database was coming up, and then the master woke up. And there was inconsistency, which was really egregious. And tenant A's data got sent to B, B's to C, C to D, and so on, right? And the production team sitting there thinking, holy crap, what just happened? I have 72 hours, based on GDPR and CCP and stuff to notify people affected. And I could inform all our customers that, look, all of your data is busted and now I'm in line for a huge fine. Or I have to quickly figure out which data objects got sent to which person. And that was hard because 72 hours, you have no logs of this activity. This reverse engineering, what could have happened, is really stressful time for the team.
So what did they do?
So in this case, they ended up kind of trying to put worst case assumptions on like which sessions were up or which connections got created. But a lot of this stuff happens over HTTP, HTTPS, or so on, right? So it's really hard to. So they had to like over approximate the set of potential customers that could have been affected, and just inform them all that, hey, we don't know if you were or not, but we suspect you were. So sorry about that.
Yeah, I think that's an example of like, honesty is the best policy. You do, under GDPR, you've got 72 hours to notify. And if you can't prove that there wasn't a breach, and you're supposed to reach out and tell everybody that there might have been, because if you don't, and like a week later you figure it out, then those big penalties come rolling in. Now, something I know a lot of people overlook is that when you deploy in the cloud, they usually have some really amazing logging functionality. Like in AWS, you have CloudTrail, and CloudTrail is turned on for just a few things by default, but you can ratchet it up and get really amazing logging and see what's going on, but it's just not on unless you make that effort. And I guess that's really true of any kind of security, that it's up to you to actually get in there and implement it correctly and protect your data. And that's basically what your company does, right, Mohit?
Right, exactly. So you hinted at CloudTrail, that's really good. And CloudTrail data events, that's like a fire hose of activity. And CloudTrail is available for certain AWS native services, but if you're deploying MySQL, Postgres, on RDS, then you have to go in and enable that for each of those types of services. So it's quite painful. I think if there's a way to just make it the default way to spin up and maintain infrastructure, it would really help track these kind of incidents to completion faster.
Yeah, and I've never actually thought about like a situation like that, where we talk a lot about ransomware attacks where you lose something and then you're restoring from the backup, and so that's your new database, and you've got everything's lost kind of in between that time, but you got something new you're writing to. But if that other one all of a sudden comes back, or you figure out the key and you're able to unencrypt it, how do you resolve those kind of issues? I hit that all the time in OneDrive where Don's editing a file, and I just say, just go with whatever Don did. I think that's the way to do it, I think.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, there's a big rabbit hole there, and I see the time is only 1:30, so I'm not
No, go ahead down the rabbit hole. Let's figure this.
Yeah, so I think there are two types of problems, right? One is that you breach someone's confidentiality, meaning that you took A's data and sent to B, or someone stole A, B, C, D, E, every tenant's data. And then the second one is what you just mentioned, is like integrity or availability. And you almost need two very, with confidentiality or data breach, the problem is that it can happen and you just don't even know about it, right? So how do you prove, like one of our customers, or people that we're talking to, they did a regular pen test and they found that one of their applications had a vulnerability in the last 6 months, right? It was open to the internet, it had this vulnerability. And now the question is, did it get exploited? So from a data breach angle or confidentiality angle, it's really hard to answer. Like if it happens and the criminals don't come back and report to you, you just don't even know this happened. Right? Whereas with ransomware, it happened. Like your data is now not accessible. It's encrypted. It's lying around, right? So these are two very different types of problems, and just building a tool to be able to keep really good backups and being able to restore. That's that addresses to some fraction the ransomware problem, but it doesn't address the data breach problem at all.
Well, and I know ransomware has kind of started turning into breaches, though. In the early days, you got hit with ransomware, your stuff was encrypted, but at least it wasn't exfiltrated anywhere. So if you formatted and restored from a backup, you were back in business and you didn't have to notify customers. But now they'll encrypt your data and exfiltrate some of it. So even if you format and then restore from a backup, you've got data, and they'll try and get a ransom for that. Like, hey, pay the ransom or we leak this. And we've seen a few high-profile cases now where they've actually gone and leaked that data out, and now it's just as bad as if they had done a full technical breach.
We had one last week, was it? That we were talking about a school system that leaked some data?
Las Vegas.
Yeah, so that's That's definitely worried. Well, I got you so worried about the clock there, but you were actually able to get all that in right under the wire. So I'm sorry about threatening with the buzzer. It's it's very frightening, but you'll be okay.
I don't want to wake up at night being buzzed.
I mean, we can shut your mic off if it comes to it, so don't worry about it. So if people want to find out more about Symmetry Systems, what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
Symmetry-systems.com is great. You can watch the demo. There's contact us link. That's great. Mohit, M-O-H-I-T at symmetry-systems.com. Email me directly or tweet at us, Symmetry Systems on Twitter. That's great.
So I'm curious, what is like the ideal customer size for you? I mean, is it the Fortune 500? I mean, obviously that's great. They their check's always clear. But is it them? Is it the mom and pop shop with 5 or 10 people? What's kind of that sweet spot that really fits for Symmetry?
So I think for healthcare, finance, if you're an AWS, GCP, Azure shop, and you have, let's say, 100 or so plus engineers, right? That's great because now you're big enough and you're making enough money that you're really worried about your customers' data and you need to protect it. If you're smaller than that, sometimes just surviving is big enough problem that maybe you don't worry about it as much. So I would say like any company that's about 100 engineers or so, or 100 people or so and up is a great candidate for reaching out to DataGuard. Spinning it up is easy. You can try it out even as a small team, but our ideal customer profile has some sort of regulated data on the cloud, 100 or so people.
Perfect.
And up. We have a couple of Fortune 500.
Yeah, don't turn them away. Yeah,
right.
Like we'll take them as well.
Right.
And sometimes those kind of companies, a division might kind of almost look like a small business in that sense. So it kind of works in that way too. Exactly. That you're not working with the whole company, but a lot of stuff is segmented there. Well, I just realized the University of Texas connection. I see you've got that Matthew McConaughey hair. So I can definitely see the connection. Well, so symmetry-systems.com, check it out and head over there. Well, Mohit, thank you so much for taking the time with us today and sharing your nightmare as well with us.
Thanks for having us. You guys are really fun.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you soon. And stay tuned, everybody. We've got more Technado coming up right after this quick break. Need to create custom training videos and not sure where to start? The IT Pro TV studios are your answer. Whether you're creating end-user training, employee training, a podcast, or general promotional videos, the IT Pro TV studio team is here to help. Choose the level of service that fits your needs, from ad hoc video production to the convenience of turnkey service. Available services include pre-shoot consultation, recording, editing, makeup, on-camera talent, and more. Choose from a variety of sets, or customize the look using your own background displays and props. And if you think video is outside your budget, think again. The IT Pro TV studios are an affordable option with half, full, and multi-day rates available. Visit itpro.tv/custom-training to see the sets, view a detailed list of equipment, schedule a visit, and request your personalized quote. Don't stress about video creation. Let the IT Pro TV studio team bring your video ideas to life. Welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette, and we've got a lot of news to get to today, as Don alluded to. I think we actually have a bonus article at the end. So let's just jump right in. Our first article is from securityboulevard.com. Massachusetts Public School District cancels online classes after alleged cyber attack. And I can only assume this was from a student. Because in my day, we used to do bomb threats. That was, I mean, not we, people.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought when I read this. I was like, man, remember when people would call in a bomb threat? Like today, you'd go to Guantanamo if you did that.
Sure,
but, or you had snow days. There were various things that got you out of school. And today, it's now hackers. Hacked, whatever. This story, I think, is going to end up being a little more complex because initially they were saying there were a series of power outages that were messing with their data centers. Then they said there was some kind of bug on the network, and now it turns out that it was actually ransomware. So their systems were getting encrypted by ransomware, and basically it shut down the teacher side of things. They had to stop classes. They are restoring their systems now, but it's yet another victim of something that's fairly preventable. Good endpoint security, staying on top of your network, making sure your machines stay up to date could have avoided this. Now, darn it, these kids get a day off of school.
I know.
What is this world coming to?
All I see is a couple of kids like, I got an idea. If you go on this website on the Tor network, then you can buy
for 99 cents.
Yeah, a ransomware attack, man. Totally worked for my cousin. and I don't really want to do work today.
Yeah, I got a test in third period, so if you could do it right before that would be great.
Now, it said they canceled online classes. Doesn't mention in person, so I don't know.
It says it affected 25,000 students, and this is the second largest school district in the state, is Springfield. So I'm assuming not, based on those numbers. It probably, they probably made all those kids come in and take that test still. But it'll be interesting to see if they are able to trace it back. I mean, who knows if it's? Well, I'm guessing the kid brags on Twitter. Or TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Probably TikTok.
That's about how it works.
I doubt this will get traced back to anything. Like the way the United States prosecutes any kind of cybercrime is almost a joke. So, yeah.
They just tell him, please don't do that again.
Day off of school.
Yeah, but if the kid's on there dancing on TikTok and saying he did it, I think we have to.
I have heard stories that like they'll come and give you a stern talking to, like an FBI man will show up and go, "Listen, son, you think it's funny to take a day off of school and have a hee-haw with your friends? Well, that's the road to drugs, and the next thing you know, you'll be, probably a millionaire with your TikToking and whatnot." Shit, works. I mean, whatever. Just do your thing.
What is the level of crime you have to commit to make something actually happen?
Yeah.
This is I think exactly what happened in the Saved by the Bell episode where Zach Morris changed his grades in the computers. He had the stern talking to, but again, not expelled. Not expelled yet again.
Mr. Belding just chained him to the radiator for a few days.
But that was the problem. The radiator was right next to the computer in Mr. Belding's office where he changed the grades. I think that was before it was online. It was all just the local mainframe there. But yeah, similar story. Yeah, it sounds like.
Very similar.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it, but as Don predicted, I don't think anything will happen, and the kids will be back in school, and the ransomware attack will start again the next day.
All we've learned about cybersecurity came from Saved by the Bell.
It did. I wonder how much, it didn't mention how much the ransom was for or anything, though, or how bad they got hit.
So they weren't admitting that it was ransomware, that one of their network people let that slip, so it's still a secret.
Let that slip. Just like the security that allowed the ransomware to get there.
I guess they don't have to report things because, none of their students are in England.
Yeah, it's not GDPR.
Or in California.
Yeah, or in California. So they're like, you're in Massachusetts, kids. We're not telling you what
You're on
happened.
your own.
Listen, what happens in Fight Club, right?
What happens in Springfield, Massachusetts?
When Mohit was talking at the beginning of the episode about how the University of Florida has a great cybersecurity group going on over there, my reply, and actually, Peter, you went to UF, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I went to UF as well, and that means that, I don't know, about 8 years ago, I got the letter in the mail letting me know that all my data had been stolen. So, top-notch program.
Yeah, way to go, guys.
You're like, what data did you have? My grades? Like, are those
back then, Social Security number.
Oh, because that was the number you used for everything.
Oh, yeah.
Which didn't seem smart when you think about it. Like, I have to write my social on every test and every paper I hand in? Okay,
Yeah, all right.
Well, checks out.
Yeah.
All right, our next article might actually relate back. This one is over at zdnet.com. Microsoft and others orchestrate takedown of TrickBot botnet. ESXi, ESET, Lumens Black. Oh, geez, I shouldn't have started reading that part. Yeah, a bunch of agencies participated in the takedown. So, my question when reading this is, if you took down a botnet, that's all the devices that might have been compromised over the course of the years that this was built up, because I think this one was several years, it said, since 2016. What's to stop it from just starting up again and starting to infect new machines?
So what they did is the TrickBot botnet had infected tons, I think it was over 1 million devices, if I recall correctly, which were mostly IoT devices. So things like webcams and other devices where people might not even realize they're hacked. Like you'd notice if your laptop or your cell phone was hacked, but if your webcam is hacked, you might not know it, and it might be blasting off all sorts of stuff across the internet. So that's how TrickBot functioned. And basically, Microsoft and these other organizations, they recognize that you can't get all of these end users to go and update their devices. It's just not going to happen. Otherwise, if people were doing updates, this wouldn't happen in the first place, right? But people aren't. And so what they do is they target the command infrastructure behind the scenes. So when they take out the command and control or the 2C servers.
What does that mean? Because the botnet is controlled by one central computer that's telling them what to do.
Usually it's every couple of seconds your webcam will reach out to a central server and say, hey, do you have any instructions for me?
Okay.
And most of the time it would be no. And then the people who run these networks, they go on the dark web and they sell access to it. Like you could rent the TrickBot network for $10,000 for an hour.
It's just like AWS,
Yeah.
They call it malware as a service, actually.
which is crazy. Like we've reached a critical like use of that buzzword when it's now.
By the way, your FOSCam's pinging right in right now.
good.
So
Is that why Netflix is always buffering, even though I'm on fiber at home?
Oh, well, you know.
That happens. And so in this case, all those IoT devices are trying to reach back to servers that aren't there anymore.
Okay.
And so they've kind of taken that piece out. So basically, whoever ran the TrickBot network would have to put up new command and control servers, and then they would have to reinfect all of those devices. Well, hopefully by this point, networks are aware of the exploits that were used, and endpoint protection, all that will be better at protecting it. So they'll have to come up with some kind of new method to be able to spread that around.
I think it was TrickDaddy that was running it. Now,
TrickDaddy.
my question is, if they knew where that machine is and what the IP address is and what ISP it's on, can they not go after this person or people that set this up?
So the problem is they use fake email accounts,
Okay.
and they set up with like my student information from the University of Florida.
If the FBI comes and knocks at Dom's house, like, no, I didn't do that.
And Daniel, you've messed around with this a bit, right? Like, it's not hard to set up a cloud hosting service under a fake identity, is it?
No, it's sock puppets are a real thing where you're just like using fake information. They have different email servers that allow you to basically, how you have to do some verification if you don't want it to link back to yourself. There's just open mail services that will allow you to do that kind of thing. I do it all the time for getting information, and I don't want to get marketed to you.
Yeah, we learned about that on our
Son of a-
webinar.
right,
Daniel,
exactly
Daniel
right.
taught us that all those were fake email addresses. Thanks.
Fakety fake.
Thanks, Daniel.
It's fun. But yeah, then once you have that in place, like Don said, if they took it down, you just have to rebuild all that, which would be time and effort. But ultimately, they're probably going to see a resurgence of some change, because when it comes to especially like closed source exploits, yeah, we know that TrickBot does this, but are they sitting on TrickBot 2.0 that will evade all those malware signatures and the way that it works so that it can get by? I'll be interested in seeing whether or not that happens and how effective that becomes and how they can stop a resurgence of that same botnet.
And I think they mentioned in the article that there were a couple of botnets that were shut down like this before, and they did manage to come back. Yeah. Just new command and control servers, and then they start to spread all over again.
Well, that's the key. I mean, I'm always looking for the takeaway, the lesson learned here, and the lesson to me is the same as a company needs to have backups.
Just give up.
Offsite. have your botnet, backed up all the time. So if it gets taken down, you can turn around and fire it up again.
You got to take your command and control servers and make them hybrid cloud.
That's right.
You got to spread them across more than one provider.
I don't want to be in an availability zone that goes down.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm still trying to get C2 traffic.
Yeah. Do you think they're calling like AWS when they go down, going, my botnet cannot even call home right now?
I think what's important here is that my botnet's down.
And Daniel, did I say it wrong? I said 2C. Is it C2?
C2, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Noob.
Yeah, or CNC command and control.
This is embarrassing.
Command and Conquer servers.
Command and Conquer servers.
Yep.
That's right.
Oh man, that was a great
Build
game.
another battleship.
That's what my UF data probably says. Is this guy played a lot of Command and Conquer on our network?
On their network.
Because I did. All right, our next article is also over at ZDNet and also about Microsoft. And we didn't really get into that part with the last one, but yeah, Microsoft helped and all these other companies helped. So thanks. But our next one here, Microsoft's VS Code comes to Raspberry Pi and Chromebook. New version 1.5 update is out. And the Visual Studio Code is available for Linux ARM v7 and ARM 64 devices. So that means I can run a version of Visual Studio on a Raspberry?
Well, it's VS Code, which is really like a super glorified text editor, but it has kind of taken the world by storm. I know I'm a big Sublime text user, but VS Code is basically a feature parity with Sublime, and everybody was really surprised when Microsoft released this as an Electron app. It could run on Linux, Mac, and Windows. Now they branched out even further, and in this case, your Raspberry Pi is probably running Linux. They already had VS Code for Linux, so the significant part here is that it's for an ARM processor. So they're actually doing compiled builds now to support ARM processors, which is good, because we are seeing more and more systems starting to adopt that. Apple is going to be adopting that next year on more of their systems.
Is that what's on a Raspberry Pi? Is it an ARM?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
All of the Raspberry Pis are ARM processors.
So I'm running XP on mine after it leaked last week.
I don't think somebody could cross-compile that. Maybe.
No, I did it. I did it.
I think that would be a challenge. So, drivers would obviously be the big issue there. But VS Code, if you're running it on a Raspberries really don't have the horsepower to compile code. So, like the real-time debugging that VS Code doesn't work so well. But what Microsoft was pointing out was they've got this new cloud service that you tie to where VS Code is the front end, but it's actually being compiled in the cloud. And so with that, you could actually have a Raspberry as a full development environment, and it'll perform great.
So good luck to all the companies that take the nice, expensive computers away from your developers and give them Chromebooks and Raspberries and go, no, this is what you have now.
Yeah.
Compiled in the cloud.
I think I saw some of our devs just tear their clothes off and run through the streets.
Well, speaking of our devs,
Got nice new computers.
they all built custom computers specifically optimized to be able to compile code faster. So, they did all these tests and stuff. Like they built machines for that. But if you compile in the cloud, you have access to practically infinite resources. So they could have gone with a cheap Chromebook and done that.
I guess you got to figure out that when that cost makes up for itself.
Yeah.
Because you're paying for all that processing time, I guess, versus paying to build the computer up front. So,
yeah.
I mean, if you can get away with a $30 Raspberry, then I guess you maybe need a monitor and a keyboard. Maybe a mouse. You don't even need the mouse at that point. All right.
You got to pay extra for the mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Well, that's kind of cool. That's I don't know if it's something that we're going to see a lot of businesses take advantage of, but it's a kind of a cool project.
Yeah, it's more for the makers, I think.
Sure.
Hobbyists.
Yeah, students and things like
They
that.
get
as
all
well.
those bells and whistles in there, like that kind of stuff, like autocomplete and these code editors, these editors. It just annoys me because I'm like, stinking tab. That's not what I wanted, and why are you filling that out with the wrong name? So that kind of stuff is not up my alley. But I remember watching like Justin and stuff. Man, he's like a wizard when you're watching him crank through all these.
Because you're like, how's he typing that fast? But it's actually auto.
And you're like, what the
filling.
hell? I mean, it'll fill in a bunch of stuff. Especially if you've defined blocks of code that you're going to reuse or whatever. It'll grab all that and go, just pop it right in.
See, I use hackertyper.com.
Hackertyper.com.
That one's a favorite.
Yeah, is it
Emacs all the way, baby.
hackertyper.io. Yeah, and that's
Daniel, have you seen that?
What? No, I haven't seen that.
So you go to the webpage, and for everybody listening out there in TV
All right,
land,
I'm going.
hackertyper.io, it basically brings up a terminal, and no matter what you push on the keyboard, it starts typing code.
Oh, I have seen this.
And you can just bang on the keyboard, and people think that you're really Mr. Robot or whatever.
That's the total, CSI and all those shows, they have to just be using that because they're just typing at ridiculous breakneck speeds, and you're like, how is that happening? Unless they're actually really good. That's happening from Hackertyper.
I'm going to see how well it works on my phone.
Oh,
Not at all.
I've done it for hours at my desk, and people will walk by and go, he is busy. Don't
Yeah.
mess with him."
Man, look
I
at
didn't
that
know
guy
he
go.
coded.
Yeah.
No, he's coding today. Yeah.
That is
Next
amazing.
level.
Nope.
Yeah.
Hackertyper.
I always like those films like Antitrust or whatever, and somebody's writing code, and then someone will come behind them and that's nice.
Well, I like when
looks
they're doing
good.
it out loud, too, and they're narrating, like just
Yeah.
bypassing the firewall.
Yeah.
Almost there. We're in. This is a Unix system. I know that.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Classic. All right. Our next article is not really an article as much as a blog post from flings.vmware.com. And we were joking before with the production team. I said, you guys always throw me these words, and I don't know if I say a word or if it's just the letters. So I'm going to go with my guess on this one. ESXi Arm Edition, now available from VMware. Was that right?
It
That's
is
it.
sexy.
It's
You nailed it.
Capital E, capital S, capital X, and then a little I.
This one's just ESXi.
Damn it.
Yeah. I like yours better,
I like
though.
ESXi better.
Yeah, they need a
ESXi.
PR team.
I'm going to say
missed an
VMware
opportunity.
probably should like that better.
So VMware is bringing ESXi back, and so they have released a version of ESXi, which is their hypervisor, the core piece of vSphere. So they've released their hypervisor that will actually run on ARM, and not just ARM, it will run on a Raspberry Pi. And so what they've done is they've created a build of ESXi designed for the Raspberry Pi 4. And so if you have a Raspberry Pi 4, either the 4 gig or the 8 gig model, you can drop ESXi on it and start spinning up virtual machines. Now, Raspberry Pis are not very powerful, so you might be asking yourself, why would I want to do that? In this day and age of Kubernetes and containers and Linux VMs, you can actually spin up quite a bit of things running on a single Raspberry Pi. It's actually pretty darn impressive. So to have 3 or 4 containers running with a gig or 2 of RAM each, you could actually do like a mini Kubernetes setup. So if you're learning, practicing, or just doing like local development and then shipping it up into AWS, a Raspberry Pi becomes a viable development environment. So I know that's 2 Raspberry Pi articles in the same week, but there's just some really cool stuff coming out right now.
Yeah, but the argument for making the engineers get rid of those really fancy computers they just built and using Raspberry Pis just keeps getting better.
I know. When you see a bunch of IT Pro TV desktops on eBay next week, you'll know what happened.
Yeah. Don's just going to walk into the dev room and like, all right, you bunch of money suckers. Here's what's about to occur.
Now, Don, you've got that really cool Raspberry Pi cluster that you've been playing with. I mean, would something like that, be able to be even more powerful on something like this?
I would say this is better. With the cluster, you have to use the Raspberry Pi compute modules, which only have a gig of RAM each. So you can't have anything that runs over a gig of RAM. Well, like your Kubernetes master needs to have more than a gig of RAM. So already you've got to put the master somewhere else. But here, you can actually assign 2 gigs of RAM to 1 VM for the master and then a gig of RAM for a couple other nodes and perform everything in place. So until the compute module 4 comes out, I think this solution, ESXi, running on top of like an 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4 would be really cool.
Interesting. Are you going to get one, try it out?
I ordered one, yeah. I had a 4 gig model, but I ordered an 8 gig.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. But I mean, you're going to put this on there and give it a
so
whirl?
see what it's like. Because I mean, usually if I'm trying to mess around with ESX, I'll take an old laptop or a desktop that we've got laying around. But a Raspberry Pi is a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, sure is. Very cool. All right, we'll check that out again over at VMware.com. They've got all the details on that one. Let's move on to our next story. This is at arstechnica.com. Apple pays $288,000 to white hat hackers who had run of company's network. A hacker team was led by a 20-year-old, finds 55 vulnerabilities. 11 of them are critical. And this is the kind of stories you like to see, that white hat hackers doing it the right way. And or something like this, is this specific bounties that a company like Apple will put out, or is this just random stuff that they find and they just kind of come up with a price then at that point?
So Apple has a bounty posted based on severity for the bugs. And so, if you do a critical bug, then, they pay a higher value. If it's just like a severe or whatever, then it's a little bit lower. The thing is, these guys found a ton. All said and done, they found 55 different vulnerabilities. They were able to gain full access to Apple's internal network. They were able to gain full access to people's iCloud accounts and email, their iCloud storage. I mean, these guys had the run of the land inside of Apple, and they did responsible disclosure. They shared everything with Apple. The first batch they gave them, somewhere here in the article, they ended up getting paid something like $23,000, and then right around the corner, Apple sent a check for another $250,000 or something, and then they're saying that there's potentially more. They still have other bugs that were reported. So from Apple's perspective, paying, like, it sounds like a lot, $288,000. But if they had an actual data breach, it would cost them millions and millions of dollars in penalties and fines, not to mention the PR debacle, like the stuff there. And Apple's got a ton of money. They've got billions of dollars in the bank. So this is totally a good deal for Apple. And it makes me wonder, is Apple not hiring really good pen testers to test out their network? Here's this independent organization that found all this stuff. Whoever is officially doing the pen testing for Apple should really reevaluate the job they're doing.
Well, you got to remember, Don, it's when a pen test, how long does that typically last, right?
If you were Apple, you'd think all the time.
Well, they if they're Apple, they probably have like red teamers, right? They're so big, they have so much money, they probably have a red team that is constantly after them. But they act more like APT, right? They're coming after them as a nation state hacker would, as some advanced threat that would want to infiltrate an Apple. Or these guys are just a bunch of bug bounty hunters going, man, here's your web infrastructure. I was able to do a lot with just that and make some money, figure out some issues that you're having, get them closed up. So good on Apple that they have a responsible disclosure and that they pay out good money to bring in obviously very bright people to try to find those flaws and then get them. And they said within hours they were getting these things triaged.
Yeah, but I don't think they brought in these people at all. Like these people are just kind of on their own.
No. These people are on there. They're just bug hunters.
Just like HackerOne or places like
correct.
that.
Yeah.
I just think if I had billions of dollars in the bank, and your average pen test, they can range in price, right? If you do a week-long pen testing exercise, depending on the assets, you can spend between say $10,000 and $50,000. Let's say it's $100,000 to have a pen test team come in and test for a week. I would schedule 52 companies, one a week, all year long, and drop the, what was that, 50 million or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean,
500,000.
When you have billions of dollars in the bank, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, well, when you assume that there are still going to be things that fall through the cracks, but 55 things, 11 critical is not a couple things. So I bet they go out and try to hire this kid, and he says, "No, I can actually make a lot more doing it this way, the way you guys are paying."
Well, I mean, they're such a large entity though that it's that crowd. So it's almost like the open source community looking for bugs, right? You've got so many people that are able to, and you're thinking, well, these are just 5 guys, probably 5 really smart guys who I mean, if you've never tried to like look through what a web application and the depth and breadth of those things can be, it's a lot. And I agree with Don, like they got a lot of money. There's no reason that they shouldn't have a very large full-fledged security team. You're just never going to catch it. It just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how large the company, doesn't matter how much money they have, there's always going to be problems to find, and every day they make a change to their code or their systems, you start with 0, right? You're going, okay, what we did yesterday is now yesterday, and today is today. We need to restart again. So every time they make a change, they create a new environment. That's why people that work on these large bug bounty programs that continue to find vulnerabilities, it's like, how are we still finding vulnerabilities? Well, we made a change. Something changed. We did something new here. We took that down. We spin this up. And now it's a completely different environment. That river is always changing. So that's why things like bug bounties are so helpful. You don't have to pay a staff. You just pay when they find issues. And obviously they're doing a good job of like, oh, you gave us something. Let's test it. Let's figure out whether or not it's legit. If it is, get it fixed.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. But I guess I just have a hard time thinking about like, the Apple people. I use an iPhone, right? I use some Apple devices, and
how well does it work?
When it works fine. And when Tim Cook gets up in front of Congress or whoever, puts on his smarmy bastard attitude and is like, only a company like Apple can protect your data. We care about user privacy. Like to give us that line, have billions, $1 trillion valuation,
big company,
and not have the best security posture of any other company on the planet. I mean, they're a technology company. If this was,
they may have the best security posture. That's the thing. Like they actually
all screwed, right? I mean,
listen,
just
I've sat on panels with security experts, and you know what they say about the state of security? It's a tire fire. There is no good security out there. We're just doing the best we can.
What was it in Aliens 2? We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
We're screwed.
Yeah. Maybe we got them demoralized. Security is so hard. That it's exactly right. We're doing the best we can, and they very well may be doing the best that anybody can do, and still are falling short.
I think Tim Cook should try that line next time he's at Congress. Well, security is hard, Congressman.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, security Congressman, I've got your data right here. I got a bunch of money. I paid some guys. I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail.
I don't think I am. I've got billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I hope you're right, Daniel, but I'm a little skeptical, and I kind of feel like this means that Apple is not doing as much as they say they are as far as protecting our data.
Well, they say they've only processed about half of those 55 things that were submitted so far, and they expect the payout could exceed $500,000 by the time it's all said and done. So good for them, and I'm sure they'll be looking at some other networks as well. Well, we've got one more thing to get to today. This is our WTF article for the week, and I'd play my WTF intro, but it's not playing, so insert it here in your mind.
He is saying WTF about his WTF intro.
Actually, we could play it right now. Great, so we just put it in post there. All right, so this one is from CNN.com. A former Austin Library employee is accused of stealing $1.3 million in printer toner. And I should have asked Mohit if that's why he left Austin.
Couldn't print anywhere.
How
Yeah,
did
I
you
got some,
fund this startup? You had a $1.3 million in
Next
seed
question.
money?
Next
Congratulations.
question.
So I guess this was a guy who worked there, and he was the one who bought the toner. And you think, oh yeah, that's an expensive thing, and we have to buy that all the time. And he's just buying extra and throwing it up on eBay, which, I mean, you probably wouldn't notice until you did an audit and said, really, what are we printing? Did we print all the books that are in the library?
So and that's what they did, right? They did an audit, and they found where they had spent $1.5 million in toner over the course of, it was like a 10-year period, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time.
And during that time, 2007 to 2019, so longer.
Yeah.
And what they found was that they should have spent about $150,000 in toner, so 10 times the usage. So this guy is buying like a 10-pack of toner, using one and selling the other 9, or whatever model he was following. He was pulling money out like crazy. And he went a step further and was using like one of the government credit cards to buy things like VR headsets
He had access
and video
to
games.
10 library credit cards.
Wow.
And was spreading out
What
stuff around.
library is this? I mean, the Austin
The city
Library
of
is
Austin, or is
amazing.
this-
Yeah.
Yeah, city of Austin. Yeah,
Well, and he worked in finance, right?
18 grand. Oh yeah, so I guess he figured he could cover his tracks, because to me that's when you get caught. I mean, you always get a little bit too greedy and you start buying an Oculus and robotic vacuums.
That's the thing that tips them off is, we bought an Oculus, start an audit.
Well, and the library's going,
Nobody
do we
can
have
afford
a Roomba
those."
here? We don't have a Roomba.
It runs at night.
Do we have a drone? We don't have it. There's a drone on this receipt. I don't think we have a drone.
And that was another part of how he got nailed, was that several of the invoices, when they went back and pulled them, had his home address as the delivery address.
Oops.
And apparently had like
Smart.
a pallet of toner in his garage. So
What's
there's
the line from Office Space? How come the mafiosos can be so good at crime and smart guys like us could suck so badly at it?
I mean, hey, this guy made it for 12 years. I think that's pretty good.
Where's he at now?
He's in jail.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
For the next 12 years at least, probably. But does it say that he's been convicted yet, or just
No, he's been
accused?
arrested.
He's accused at this point. So, yeah, we're going through the legal process, and I'd love to come back and find what the actual time is for something like this. Here's the thing, though: he's a city employee, so they probably still couldn't fire him.
Yeah,
You get your job back when you come out of prison.
He's on paid leave.
yeah.
Administrative leave. Yeah, no, that's a lot of fun.
He's going to be the finance guy for the prison he's at.
Yeah. Is there a lifespan on toner, or he could have held on to this for a while?
It does last a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a matter of the cartridge still fits the machine. So is that machine outdated?
Yeah, you just can't let it get too hot. And you'll find that like HP will use the same toner cartridge for multiple models.
Oh, okay.
So there might be a huge resale market here.
Yeah,
I think that's what he was
garage
doing,
in
was
Texas.
like reselling it.
Yeah, garage in Texas doesn't seem too hot, so I'm sure the toner is just fine. But
I don't know. I wonder, would a garage in Texas get hot enough to fuse toner? I don't think so.
That would be pretty dang hot, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like the Corona wire in a printer gets really hot.
Yeah.
So I don't think the garage would be hot enough.
boy, wouldn't that be the best if he goes to sell his toner?
And it's just a brick. It's a
brick of
toner
resin.
brick. Yeah.
That's how he got caught. But that's a shame. Shame for him. Shame for the people of Austin
Yeah.
who have paid for this toner. They
That
should
is true.
They should get it back. I guess they should release the toner back out to the people.
Well, I think if they go paperless, it'll fight crime.
Yeah. Do you think he had a plan in place for
Yeah.
what happens when they digitize?
He's just a.
Or that was the drones and the robot vacuums.
Maybe he was some sort of like eco-terrorist, and that was how he was like, he's gonna pilfer the system of millions of dollars. so
Stick
they'll-
it to the man.
They'll go digital and stop printing so much.
He was actually trying to do a public service.
Isn't toner like?
He's the victim here.
Yeah. I don't know if it's toner or ink itself, but it's like the most expensive like liquid, like more expensive than gas and all these things. When you say like the price per ounce of this stuff. Is,
Oh,
yeah.
that's probably the ink.
yeah.
Yeah.
Toner not so much, but
Toner
anyway,
not
great story. Glad to see he was caught, and just a lesson to all of you out there: if you're stealing, don't get too greedy.
Stealing is
Yeah,
bad.
you steal a little bit.
Yeah, just steal a little bit, and don't think that means you can steal a little bit more.
Stealing is bad, okay?
Yeah. If you steal, you're bad.
Drugs also poor, bad decision.
How
Hey,
did this go to drugs?
because he
Guilty
did the,
conscience.
No, he did
Yeah.
the
You're high right now, aren't you?
Look, that's neither here nor there. I don't see how that's related. I'm going to change the subject. We have a webinar coming up on Thursday, October 29th, Lessons from the Dark Web, using a Raspberry Pi Onion router for secure internet access. And I feel like Don is somehow on Raspberry Pi's payroll with 2 stories today, and he's showing how to make a Tor router out of it.
So this it was actually an idea we got from a viewer. They wanted another dark web webinar, and I was out of ideas, and they suggested this one. So I did some research, and there's like multiple ways to make a Tor router or proxy. I decided to do the hardest one, which is to do a transparent proxy, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to set that up. I'll show you guys all the steps to do it. And basically, you can have machines running through the Tor network where the machines don't even know about it at all. No client, no configuration, just automatic. It's pretty slick.
I like this.
Now, what's the business tie back to this? Because I know we've talked, like in the other ones, it was, hey, how to see if my data from my company is out there on the dark web. What's the tie?
So this scenario would be like if you are on untrusted networks, like really untrusted networks, you're in a foreign country as an operative or something like that, you could basically bring up this box that it would build the Tor connection so that your device never actually touches the regular network. It's never exposed at any point. So your machine will have 0 internet access. You plug it into the Raspberry Pi, and now it will have a connection via Tor. It's never exposed.
All right.
I'm down with this.
Yeah, you got to get me one of them pies.
You can buy one. You buy one of those mystery boxes off the Tor now.
There you go.
Don, what's your affiliate code?
Why is it
for
so
buying
wet
a
and
Raspberry
heavy?
What's this white powder on everything?
Yeah, weird.
All right, well, that is Thursday, October 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Head over to itpro.tv/webinars to register for that. You can also check out the one that Daniel just did, which was our second most viewed webinar of all time so far in terms of the live audience. That was Secrets of IoT. Are your devices spying on you? Where he finally hacked into that FOSCAM that we've been talking about for years and years, and it was just as frightening as you would expect, but very cool. A lot of great interaction on that one. So thank you, Daniel, for a great webinar.
We try.
Yeah. And also, while you're on that internet, head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. You can request a team trial for your company and see all the cool features available to teams of 2 to 2 million available on IT Pro TV, and you can also get a 30% off coupon code for the lifetime of your personal account. That is over at go.itpro.tv/Technado. And yeah, I think that's it this time around. So thank you to Mohit again for telling us all about Symmetry Systems and the cool stuff there and joining us. And thank you guys for your input on these great articles this week.
You shut your mouth.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I've got to go order some toner. So we'll see you next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzette.